Please join us in the flag salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, roll call, please.
Note for the record that all council members are present.
Okay, adoption of the agenda. Is there any additions, deletions, change, Ray?
Yeah, I'd like to suggest that I mention this now so the staff can get prepared. I think it would be helpful under city manager's report that we had a little update on the TAP, just so we could have that on record. And then also, if you, city manager wouldn't mind talking about where we're at with the celebration for the move back to the fire station. And that would all be under city manager's report. That's okay.
Okay.
And I also have one addition under Mayor Council Matters to add an item C, discussion of council meeting calendar.
Discussion of what?
Council meeting calendar.
Council meetings?
Yes.
Okay, and I know there's also a letter that we wanted to talk about in regards to Prop 13.
So under written communications?
Yeah, under written communications, under item B.
Okay.
Okay, and then also I'd like to close in memory of two longtime Brisbane residents who recently passed away, one in December, Dennis Wilkin, and one recently, Fran Pedersen, both longtime citizens of Brisbane, so I'd like to close in their memory. So with that, do we have any more changes?
Adoption of the agenda as amended.
Have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, very good. We got an operating menu, and first up, we have a presentation, which is shuttle services in Brisbane, and John Ford, the executive director of the Peninsula Traffic Congestion Relief Alliance, is here to do that. John.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Appreciate the opportunity to present to you tonight, and this will be a brief presentation, I promise, on the shuttle services that the Alliance provides Brisbane, as well as a couple of other points of interest about the shuttle program in the county. The primary purpose is to talk about the commuter shuttles, and there are two different shuttles that the Alliance manages, and these are two just quick maps of the routes that one is referred to as the Balboa Park BART station route, and the other is the Bayshore Caltrain. Our commuter shuttles in Brisbane, we have 4 buses that operate primarily during the peak business hours, Monday through Friday. So that's 3 buses serve the BART route and 1 bus serves the Caltrain route. 28 passenger buses on the BART route and a 21 passenger bus on the Caltrain route. We combined to carry about 110,000 passengers over the past year on those 2 routes combined. They're funded in different manners. The BART shuttles are funded through TA grants as well as SamTrans, and then a consortium of employers. And I'll talk about who those employers are in a little bit, but that's an important part of the model that we use in the Alliance for shuttles.
John, if you wouldn't mind,
Please.
You talked about the commute hours Monday through Friday. Can you give us those hours?
Yes, I have actually pictures of the shuttle schedules as well, but it's pretty much from 6 o'clock until 9:30 in the morning, and then in the afternoon from 3:30 to about 7 o'clock. So about a 3.5 hour window on either side of the commute window, really.
Thank you.
Caltrain shuttle is different. That's funded by a series of grants as well as SamTrans. We manage that route, but SamTrans manages the route, but we provide oversight and reporting on it. This is a couple of small graphs that show a 5-year trend. The graph on the left shows the 5-year trend of ridership on these 2 routes combined. And you'll see that there's been growth in the route over the years. From 2012 to 2013, there was a little bit of a dip, but it's still very holding steady. And I'll show you in a future slide just how well this stacks up to some of the other shuttles in the county. The monthly ridership on the right-hand side, this just shows in 2013. It varies a little bit. It's not as extreme as it looks. The scale is, we range anywhere from, say, 8,700 to up to 10,400, something like that, any particular month. And that can vary based on number of days in the month and a number of other factors, including BART strikes and things like that. On this slide, this is always nice to show to you. Those two on the left that have the blue arrows on them, the furthest left is the Caltrain shuttle. The second one is the BART shuttle. And those stack up in comparison to all of the other shuttle routes that the Alliance manages in the county. So like I said, happy to show you this in this particular city. Some of the other cities I go to, I might not be so happy to show the blue arrows. A little bit of that. Part of the reason there's so much ridership on that BART route is that we have tremendous amount of coverage in terms of shuttle buses. So not only is there, demand, but there's also a lot of capacity as well, which helps be able to drive that. The consortium is really important. So from the consortium, which you'll see the list of the employers who contribute to that are on the left-hand side, we generate about $75,000 in private funding that gets matched up with the grant funding that we receive to provide the shuttle services. So it's one of the ways that we model this throughout the county. Anytime that we're involved in a shuttle, we always look for that matching partnership. And if it comes from the employers, there's buy-in. They not only help support it, but then their employees are the ones who receive the passes here in Brisbane to ride that shuttle. About 2,400 employees work at the various employers who are represented on this list, and all Brisbane residents are also eligible for those passes. We distribute about 1,200 passes to the local employees and Brisbane residents. So even though there's 2,400 employees plus the residents that you have, we issue them out on an allocation basis based on how many they ask us for. And there's about 1,200 passes given out. From that, we give about 450 rides a day. So that's about 225 in the morning. Actually, it's a little bit more than that. We do about 275 in the morning, and the balance are in the afternoon. So there's less ridership in the afternoon and more ridership in the morning. I know, I saw that look, and I don't really know why that is. Maybe people carpool on the way home. Maybe there's different alternatives for them to get home, but getting there in the morning, maybe it's because we're on time so much that everybody wants to ride the shuttles.
John, if you
Please.
mind, so say a Brisbane resident doesn't have one of the passes and they go down to the shuttle bus stop, can they get on?
They can. We give guest rides. The drivers will allow guest rides. We typically try to limit it to 2 or 3 rides before they're asked for that pass. And they're made aware when they get on that they need to have a pass for future rides, and they're told how they can get that. And we take a lot of phone calls at the Alliance office instructing people how to go about getting their shuttle pass.
Okay. And are there any limitations to getting that?
No, there aren't. As long as you're one of the employers on the consortium list or a resident of the city of Brisbane, you're eligible for a pass. Brisbane's different. This is one of the only cities that we run shuttles in where we actually require passes. And part of it has to do with the location of the businesses up in the business park that are served. There are so many stops and so many businesses that I think long before my time, it was a situation where people would say, well, why do I need to contribute to the shuttle if you're going to be stopping a block away from my business anyways? And so it went to a pass basis so that we could encourage the businesses to help support it, and therefore in return those businesses would be the ones that would receive the passes. So it's also a selling tool. So we get a lot of new businesses that come in that say, gee, how do I get to become a part of this consortium? And it's a relatively low fee for their employers or for their employees to be able to ride the shuttle, but they need to be a contributing member.
Sure. No, that makes sense. It is a good selling point.
Couple of metrics, and I'll get through this quickly, but in order to be able to qualify for grant funding for the shuttles, which we're up for a new 2-year project call right now, there are certain criteria that they must meet. So they need to meet less than $7 per passenger in cost and hopefully more than 15 passengers per service hour. You'll see in red, I've highlighted the performance of these 2 particular routes. The Brisbane Crocker Park is currently one of our best performing at $2.85 as a cost per passenger with almost 19 passengers per hour. The Caltrain, a little bit more on the cost per passenger and a little bit lower on the passengers per hour. But both are really are good performing. We don't see any problem with them getting renewed for grant funding in the next cycle. 75-25 on the split between residential and employer-based ridership. There is another shuttle. It's the Brisbane Senior Shuttle. And this is a different model. This is an on-demand and a fixed route shuttle that's funded it receives public funds, and it doesn't have a consortium membership. There's no private money put into this. It's managed by Samtrans. It's been a pilot program for many years. I'm not sure when they're going to take the pilot designation away from it, but as long as it's been a route, that's the way it's been. Again, it works on demand and fixed route, so you can dial and get picked up and delivered along anywhere along the route, or you can just use it as fixed route. This ridership is about 35 people per day during 6 daily business hours, 6 hours during the midday. So we take one of our buses that gets used during that commute time frame and gets redeployed as the Brisbane Senior Shuttle, during that 6 hours in the middle of the day. More detail than you really want here, but this is the morning schedule on the Caltrain and the afternoon schedule as well. So there's a total of 7 trips, 4 in the morning, 3 in the afternoon. All this is available on our website and on Google Maps under transit planners and so forth. The Crocker BART, we're running the 3 buses. We make a total of 11 trips. All of the trips we try to synchronize with both the northbound, southbound. Well, in BART's case, the one direction that we've got to really worry about, which is the southbound. But on the Caltrain, we're trying to synchronize between the northbound and southbound. So there are some delays in departure as we wait for the other train to arrive. Afternoon, again, 11 runs back to the Crocker Park station. The Balboa Park station. And the last one arriving at 7:29. That's my contact information. Our shuttles team is available. We have a shuttle number as well as our regular number, and all the information is available at commute.org.
Great. I have a question for you.
Please.
So with respect to the route times, I used to be a rider of the shuttles as well. I took it to San Francisco to and from work, and it was a valuable resource. The one thing that in the end prevented me from using it regularly is that the shuttle, the last pickup was, I think, at 6:40, and unfortunately my hours were long and I couldn't make that shuttle. So have you ever considered adjusting it to also adding any later times for people who have later working hours?
It's interesting. There's definitely a shift into later working hours. I think as the traffic gets worse and commute hours start to get, and demographics get a little bit changed, people are starting to work a little bit later. So we started to make some shifts in schedules to do that. And it's like anything else when you're providing public transit. As soon as you start to take away those earlier hours, people who worked at 3:30, get off at 3:30, are now saying, where's my bus that used to pick me up and take me there at 4? So we have to balance it out a little bit like that. And the extending is just a matter of cost. So it's a matter of how much we're able to generate out of the consortium and how much grant funding we can.
So how do you determine what people are looking for?
We check ridership on every route, on every bus. So we're trying to figure out how that works. If we're at low ridership in the morning, or let's say the first route of the afternoon, and we're at capacity at the last route, that gives us some indication that we obviously need to start shifting. And we do surveys of all of our riders on all the routes twice a year.
Okay. And have you ever considered adding a route that goes through the Ridge residential section? I noticed that the route goes through Crocker Industrial Park and also down to central Brisbane, but it doesn't go down Mission Blue, which is the street that goes through the Ridge.
Yeah, not something I'm familiar with. We're primarily, again, trying to deal with the commute population, getting them to the business parks, and then trying to do the reverse commute as close to that as possible to reduce the amount of travel time. The other part is, and I don't know that particular area, and I don't know if there's what type of Samtrans service there might be there, but we can't run on Samtrans routes. So we're obligated to stay away from Samtrans routes and not provide duplication of service.
Any other council questions? Cliff?
Yeah, I do. Thanks, Clark. Yeah, thank you, John, for the presentation. That was good. I know we've been trying to get together. You said that that the applications for the routes, when is that due?
February 14th.
February 14th. And so if we wanted to perhaps make some changes, like tweak it a little bit, we'd have to submit
This is the time right now.
This is the time right now. So I know that, yeah, Maria and Clay. So, yeah, hopefully we can get together soon.
And we do make changes during the year as well, but for new routes and for renewing routes, this is the time where we go for the funding.
Okay, no, that's good. You talked about the overlap. I know the Daly City now has a new shuttle. Is there any overlap with our shuttle and theirs?
No. That's their circulator shuttle. No, that seems to be a pretty clean.
That Bayshore one?
Right.
Okay. And I noticed that the senior shuttle, there's a co-op thing with Daly City. On these regular shuttles, do cities ever combine forces to cover a certain area?
We do. In most cases, the cities themselves are not the sponsors, so they're not contributing financially. So we can cross over certain areas. So, for example, we work with Foster City and San Mateo on a couple of different routes that serve both of their communities. And so it's very feasible for us to work with multiple cities on the same route.
No, that sounds good. All right, John. Well, thanks.
Thank you.
Terry, any questions?
No, very good information. It's nice to have it available.
Ray?
Yeah, just a couple of things. I'm going to go back to what Laura just asked about. And that, I think looking at the possibility of something on Mission Blue is at least worth looking at. There is no Samtrans route that runs there,
Okay.
either on Mission Blue or on Guadalupe Canyon Parkway, which is the main drag through that area. So there wouldn't be any duplication. The question is, how much demand would there be? And that's, again, her question before, how do you find out? But it kind of parallels, the Valley Drive and the Crocker Park. So, it's one of those things that's probably kind of worth looking at because it would enhance the service to all of Brisbane, whereas now it's, for central Brisbane, but not for the Northeast Ridge.
Right.
So that I think it's worth looking at.
Yep.
It's for future purposes.
I'll make a note.
And just an observation that when we had our own shuttle service years ago, it actually did run over Guadalupe Canyon Parkway to the Daly City BART station.
Mm.
Now, one of the reasons it ran that route was because it was coordinated with transferring students to Jeff High School. And so I guess that's my second point is the coordination, if any, between the shuttle service and the bus service for the high school students.
We don't have a coordination between our shuttle routes and the high school routes, so that Samtrans is providing. Students are allowed to ride, but we don't promote the shuttles as a school transportation option.
And it's because
There are many regulations that restrict what you can do and how you can carry students and how you have to be outfitted to do that. So it's something that we've tried to stay away from. We do service a couple of areas that are close to high schools, and that they are used by the faculty, and on occasion students will ride those. So, but we don't promote ourselves that way. We can't say that we are providing transportation to schools. Doesn't qualify for funding.
So would it make any sense for us on our own to investigate that without getting you into trouble?
No, it perfectly can, and I think that's where sometimes the Samtrans managing of routes has a little bit more flexibility than what we have. And so I think sometimes they've gotten involved in providing Samtrans service that's more dedicated to the high school routes than the shuttles. Shuttles don't solve all the problems, and there are certain restrictions that come with the shuttles, and I think that's one of them is transporting students.
Got it. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, John, thank you for the presentation. I had one quick one. I noticed Daly City just launched a shuttle in the Bayshore District, and I don't think that has anything to do with the Alliance.
It doesn't.
Correct? And it's kind of its own entity. And I noticed that our daytime shuttle through the Caltrain for the senior shuttle does operate up in there also. So are we seeing any kind of overlap?
I haven't seen the ridership numbers yet on that. Samtrans manages that as well. So I'm not sure how that's going to impact that daytime shuttle.
Okay. So, as you know, Cliff is now our representative on the Alliance, and I'm the backup guy. And Maria Sagasic-Sid is the supervisory chair now for the Alliance. And
thank you for making her available, Bob.
Yeah.
We do appreciate that.
Yeah, you're welcome. And if anybody, has any questions, regarding the shuttles, certainly you can contact City Hall or the Alliance. It's commute.org.
That's correct.
Right. And it's a shuttle in Brisbane and how to affect it and everything, how to ride it. And so, John, thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Honorable Mayor and council members, if I can respond to a couple of the things that came up. We are working with Samtrans actually in regard to the call for projects because a lot of the shuttle services that we're looking at either adding or enhancing are more tied to the community side of the shuttles, which Samtrans runs. So we've met with staff to see what kind of proposed routes we can try and add in to address things such as the Mission Blue area and other off-peak time areas. So hopefully we'll have some information for you next week regarding that.
Okay, great. Thank you, Maria. Okay, with that, we have oral communication. I have a number of slips here. I know Mark Hirschman is here from Jerry Hill's office who wants to make an announcement. So, Mark, you want to come on up?
Well, good evening, Mr. Mayor, Madam Mayor Pro Tem, council members.
Former Mayor of Millbrae.
Thank you, yes. And I'm delighted to be here this evening in my capacity as District Director for California State Senator Jerry Hill. Our very next Java with Jerry will be taking place right here in Brisbane this coming Friday the 7th, and it's from 8:30 to 9:30 at Madhouse Coffee. I'm sure everybody in town knows exactly where that is. 402 Visitation, top of the hill there. And it's an opportunity to come and hear from the senator about what's going on in Sacramento. We sort of call it a peek under the Capitol Dome, and to ask him questions. And we'll also have staff on hand to take down information if you have any casework issues, problems with state agencies, Department of Motor Vehicles, employment development, or otherwise. The coffee is paid for by the senator, and we'll have some snacks available. So you can leave your wallet at home, but bring your driver's license and come to Madhouse Coffee at 8:30 this Friday morning. Also want to mention that the senator will be recognizing local community hero Dan Sorrentino and his good works on behalf of the city. He likes to recognize those in the community who have done volunteer work, and Dan has come to his attention and has done some tremendous things for the city and the community, and so delighted to invite you all to join the senator 8:30 on Friday and invite the community. Want to make special mention and thank the Brisbane Chamber and your terrific city staff for helping us get the word out about this event. It's always a delight to work with the Brisbane staff and council, and looking forward to being back on Friday morning. Happy to answer any questions.
Council questions?
Yeah, well, I'm really glad that Jerry's going to be here. I told Jerry that I'm going to be out of town. My daughter has a gymnastics meet in Chicago, so we're leaving Thursday night. But I'll try and make the next one for sure.
There will be another, and good luck in Chicago.
Thanks.
That's great.
Great. Thank you, Mark.
Thanks so much.
All right. Next slip I have is Arlene Shields from Supervisor Adrian Tissier's office. Arlene?
Hello. Good evening, Mayor Conway, Vice Mayor O'Connell, Council Members Miller, Liu, and Lenz. And I do see one more person sitting up front, so congratulations. You've moved from this chair to this chair. I'm Arlene Shields, and I'm with the Office of San Mateo County Supervisor Adrienne Tissier. And I'm visiting on her behalf. She's quite a busy woman. And I'm making a couple of brief announcements with what she's got going on right now. A little bit of history. Back in 2005, Supervisor Tissier created the countywide disaster preparedness program, the day at San Mateo County Event Center. It's now in its 10th year, pretty amazing. It's been quite successful, and they're going to host this year's 10th anniversary. We hope for it to be something very different, very unusual, and of course well attended. If you're wanting to go, we encourage you to go the first day, arrive before 11, and you get free parking, free admission, and you get to, bump shoulders with the crowds. But it's quite a big draw, and it really gets people to come for the emergency preparedness training and to learn what they can do in their own homes, and perhaps buy certain items after the event. They're not selling things at the show itself. But we encourage the City of Brisbane to promote this in any way they can, to share it with the residents, and just get the word out. And I've left several flyers for you as well. And this month, we've got Age Well, Drive Smart for older drivers. It will take place actually in Daly City, but it is coming up in a couple of weeks, February 19th at the Westlake Community Center. And you can call the supervisor's number, which I will gladly answer, at 650-363-4572. And you each have a copy of all of the materials that I brought, and the most colorful one is really a great piece of information. It's the Second Harvest Food Bank. It's the bright orange one. And I think what's great about it is it helps anyone who's missing meals. That could be not only independent people that have not had a meal for a while, but it's families, and mostly it's children. So this is something that you have minimal qualifications for. It's really great information. It's very different from CalFresh, but the Second Harvest Food Bank can help tide you over for a meal or two as you need it. So this is really great information to pass on to your residents. And the supervisor is very honored to represent the City of Brisbane, and I'm happy to be here. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to help you.
When did you say that disaster preparedness?
It's actually in
process?
June, so it's a ways down the road, but we're having our meetings, and we're collecting all of the participants and exhibitors, and that kind of thing is starting to roll.
Okay, and where could we find information on where and when? I don't see that in the materials.
Well, actually, we don't have them printed.
Oh, okay.
So that's how early things are. But as they come, and I will certainly return back to Brisbane and bring a collection of flyers, so you'll have plenty of those as well.
Okay, any other council questions?
Thank you for coming, Arlene.
Sure, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. And Lisa, one of the handout had, on the back page of Adrian's handout, had pharmaceutical disposal. And our police department takes pharmaceutical disposal, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct, and that is on our records side, on the police side. They can come in through the door, and if it's during non-working hours, they can have contact with the dispatcher there, and one of the police officers would gladly help them. Yes.
Okay, but we don't do Sharps disposal program, do we?
That's correct. We do not do the Sharps disposal, just the pharmaceutical.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Thank you very much for that. Next, under oral communications, I have Andrew Torvik.
Well, my name is Andrew Torvik, and I'm a 46-year resident at the same address, 231 Alvarado. May I ask you if you have a copy of what I have prepared today? Oh, good. Yeah. And the reason I ask is that along with, I'm going to be as brief as possible, and I'm going to read what I have here. And they're kind of questions about the 3-foot easement that lies at 239, and the unsuspecting purchaser of that property didn't know that her main stairway entry to her house was changed from a single-car garage and an interior wall stairway up to her house. Was encroached upon by Walt Krager some years ago while I lived next door to it. And what he did is he squat upon that easement, and the city didn't acknowledge or know about it. But now that it's come to light due to my persistence in examination, going to the county as I did to reveal the true facts in the situation, the city still owns and maintains that. It should be maintaining that easement and all rights granted in that agreement. And then one of them is blockage. There's blockages by fences and gate, and I believe that to be an unlawful act in violation of the very specific document that I found to be true in the county, and that is that somebody has to bear the responsibility of that easement, whether it be the city or the current owner. And if the owner can be the responsible party, it should be transferred and recorded at the recorder's office so as to eliminate the city's ability to have any say in the matter. So it should be sold for $1, or it should be granted to her as a gift, but it should be recorded, and it should become her property only after which that is done. I believe that's the legal procedure. And if I'm wrong, then I'd like to be reinformed of what homeowners' rights are, because without making disclosure now of this fact, that it jeopardizes her ability to, in clear conscience, sell her property as a 2,800 square foot lot when she only has title for 2,500. And that is, it's a 25-foot lot, and without the encroachment, it should be made right. It should be due diligence to the fact that the city waives its right of easement without sale or purchase to her, so that she can begin to be more responsible in an area where a doorway recently was taken off the hinges, and a contractor that was there doing the work, when asked by me if he had a license, he said he did. And I said, have you ever installed a door such as the one that you're doing? He said, never. And I said, well, you shouldn't be installing it. I called the police. 2 Brisbane police cars came out, and they evaluated it, but they're not licensed to evaluate. We have a building code which is designed around the safety factors for everyone, and it isn't a police matter whatsoever, but yet they made the discernation that it looked okay to them. Well, they're not qualified. They're police officers. They're not building inspectors. We have a building inspector. We should utilize the services that we pay for and have him come out and on a hands-on basis tell her, because she needs to know that she cannot violate the code for whatever purposes she has with that doorway that is dangerous. And her own father, in the flight of the same stairs 6 years ago, fell and killed himself. So if this occurrence were to repeat itself at the low end of that same rise of stairs, the city would now be responsible because they are the owners of Dade. And that's on one side of me at 239, and it's a Russo residence. And there's sewage been coming out of there, and I've had ongoing issues about the sewage where are unresolved. Water still comes out of an indeterminate space within or under that easement that the city has failed to acknowledge or even inspect, to my knowledge. And I would like for the city to assume some of its legal responsibilities with regard to this situation, as it's ongoing and nothing has been done about it. That's on one side. The other side is the property my son owned at 224, where the city now is another easement problem, because there's a street-to-street, Santa Clara to Alvarado, designated 15-foot wide sewer easement from manhole to manhole that was violated by no survey by Vince Marcelli at the time, and it wandered on into my son's property at 224 before he sold it, with survey. That was brought to the city's attention. Randy Bruo was informed of it, but he, to this date, contends that he's right and the survey is wrong. No, the survey is right. It's outside the statutes of 7 years, and now Lilia has to bear the burden of 8 houses on 8-inch pipe from the upper street. Should it break, the city has to gain rightful entryway into her property to remedy the situation. The pipe is of mixed variety. It is broken. It has tree roots laden within it, and the city manager, as well as many other people with the city, have put camera into the pipe and have acknowledged the fact that it's in need of repair. While it's in need of this repair, should it then be necessary for the city to get back within the easement that was charted out by the City of Visitation when they laid the city out, get back into their own property with it and get out of private property? And that's on the other side of where I live. So I have 2 ongoing, unresolved situations where it's easy for the city to acknowledge their legal justification or their position in the matter, but they should do so as to eliminate the need for Lilia, if she chooses to sell her house in the future, or Madeline the same. That has to be resolved, and they're both owned by the city. And the state is taking over the property at 217, where there's 4-5-foot encroachments on a 17-foot lot, 17-foot wide, and I can understand why Vince had the problem he did, because in order to fix that pipe properly, they would have to remove the stairways for that entryway to that 217 17-foot wide substandard lot. And now that the city has not moved that pipe, when they go to sell that property, the state now is taking over the sale of that property. It should be immediate to their concerns that there are known violations that pre-existed and continue to be violation of the rule of law as I understand it should be. I didn't say that it was. Why is it that we have to come before a body of people and beg that due diligence take place? And that's all I ask, due diligence. Use your offices, your elected positions, to make certain that you do what you're supposed to do, and thereby eliminate the need for me to come up here and beg you to do it.
Okay, I heard you, Andy, and I got 3 issues in Clay. These we've kind of been working on and somewhat ongoing. So I know that staff has been working on this and will continue to come up with a determination. I think, David, this is delving into the legal side, so we'll probably need some legal determinations on this too. So there is a bevy of records in regards to this. And do you have any updates on that, Clay?
Not on the substance of it, but staff did meet last week with regards to this. So I'll forward information on to you as soon as we've got something that's, we've researched.
Okay, thank you. All right, next up, Mary Goodachance.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council. As you probably all know, I am the chair of the Brisbane Baylands Community Advisory Group right now. And I'm very concerned that the city attorney has decided that not only should council members and other city officials not attend CAG meetings, but, I'm sorry, not only should the city officials not participate in CAG as members of the CAG, but shouldn't even attend the meetings. I think it's a mistake. The CAG was begun because citizens in this community wanted to get as much information as possible about the contamination in the Baylands, and if possible, to influence regulators to utilize the best possible methods for cleaning up the contamination. And that's still the purpose of the CAG. And that purpose is not going to change very much at all, depending on what eventually gets built out there, or if anything gets built out there. As far as the CAG is concerned, if nothing gets built out there, our job just continues ad infinitum. Not that it wouldn't continue ad infinitum anyway, because those contaminants are going to remain there forever, according to current plans. But I think it's a real serious mistake that right now there is a member of the Planning Commission and 2 members of the council who, up until several months ago, when the city attorney told them that they could not participate, were interested enough about the contamination on the Baylands to attend meetings and to follow what was going on out there. Our next meeting is February 18th. Vic Powell, who is the caseworker for the Regional Water Quality Control Board, covering not Kinder Morgan, but the southern part of the rail yard, and not Icehouse Hill either, and the landfill. He's going to come and he's going to give a presentation about the latest that's going on in the areas under his purview, and then we'll be allowed to ask questions of him. I just think the idea that members of the council shouldn't have this information, shouldn't be allowed to go to this meeting and become informed about the contamination that's out there and the ways that it's being dealt with, and to see for themselves how adequate it is. And I think that's bad. I think it's bad for the city, and I think it's unfortunate that the city attorney does not look for ways to make it possible for council members and other city officials to do what's right for the city, and that instead the city attorney seems to be looking for ways to make his job easier. So I hope that Carolyn Parker and Terry and Clark, at least, will be able to continue to participate to some extent, at least to listen to what the regulators say and to ask questions if they have any. If you don't want to make comments about the draft EIR, don't. This is not a draft EIR issue. This is an issue about not that the draft EIR doesn't address these issues to some extent, but no matter, the draft EIR specifically zeroes in on a couple of development proposals and a couple of alternatives. And the job of the CAG is totally independent, or the purpose of the CAG is totally independent about what is built out there. I fail to see why it was okay for you to come to a meeting in May when there were proposals on the table, and now it's not. It doesn't make sense to me that a council member can sit on a body that would vote on whether or not the transportation improvements that might be necessary for a particular scheme to take place, that you could sit on that body and vote against transportation improvements that the landowner might wish, but you can't come to a CAG meeting and learn more about the contamination on the Baylands. I think the city attorney's job is to make it possible for the council members and for the city to do the right thing, and I think that's the right thing.
Thank you, Mary. David, I know we've had numerous conversations, but I guess this is specific about a regulatory committee coming in and communicating. It's not specific on the draft EIR, but on the contamination. Can you comment on that?
Couple of important things. I mean, in terms of the advice that the council gets, the recommendations, and the council ultimately can take the recommendations, of course, or not take the recommendations. My role is to take a look at what the legal issues are for the council, for the city, and to provide you with the best advice that I can possibly give in terms of protecting the city's interests and the interest of the council going forward. So with that being said, the concern is that this is an unusual situation because unlike the BBCAG before you were looking at the Baylands EIR, the council and the planning commission have very specific defined roles in the review of the draft EIR and the recommendations. And the legal issue is not that there's an absolute legal prohibition against a council member or a planning commissioner attending the BBCAG meeting. The issue is that particularly when the comment period was going on, that because of the formal role that the council and the planning commission has and the potential confusion from participating and asking questions or submitting comments as a member of the BBCAG that ultimately you would have to rule on as a decision maker or the planning commission would have to rule on as a recommender, there was at least the appearance of the potential conflict of interest which could jeopardize any decisions that the council and planning commission made going forward. So the concern was to protect the process, protect the decisions of both the council and the planning commission. With respect to where we are right now, the comment period has closed, and so the concern about the participation while the comments are going forward is less than it was prior to January 24th. However, because of the formal role of the council in making the decision ultimately on the EIR, of course the interest is that the council have all the information that it needs, but to the extent that a presentation would get into the draft EIR discussion or that there would be questions or participation by either the council or the planning commission at the BBCAG meeting, that could be perceived as a problem and as a conflict of interest. So the recommendation would continue to be that, at least as far as the council goes, that there not be participation during the formal EIR process. Of course, when that is concluded, then the council has every right to participate and to ask questions, to be a regular member of BBCAG. With respect to the Planning Commission, because the Planning Commission is only making recommendations, the concern is a little bit less. I mean, in terms of best protecting the city, the recommendation would still be that the best way to do that is for the Planning Commission not to participate or attend the BBCAG meeting. However, if the Planning Commission was to participate, then it would be important that they...
Stop. Okay, continue.
Yeah. The recommendation would be that they not participate actively in asking questions or in the discussion, because that would potentially lead to the perception of a potential conflict. So, again, the basis for the recommendation...
Stop, John.
I'm sorry. I
John,
can't
John,
laugh.
stop.
It's so ridiculous.
John.
Sorry. All right. Right.
It's not oral communications yet. Sit down.
It is oral communications, isn't it?
It's. I haven't called your name.
Oh, okay.
Let him finish.
I'm next, aren't I?
Yeah, you're
okay,
next.
great.
Let him finish.
So the basis of the recommendation is, again, in looking at what the legal issues are coming forward with respect to the draft EIR, knowing that this is certainly a very controversial and going to be a very contested decision for the city, and trying to best protect the council and the city from any future allegations from either the applicant or from another party, that there was some either bias or prejudgment on the issue before it reached the formal hearing process. So that, again, is the basis. That is a recommendation. As I mentioned, it's not legally prohibited, but my job is to give you the best recommendation that I possibly can based on my analysis of the law It's also important to know that the city has retained separate CEQA counsel, and the outside CEQA counsel strongly agrees with those recommendations as presented.
Okay, thank you, David. Any council question for David on that?
Just one thing. You didn't mention staff. Would you speak to that issue too? Staff participation.
Councilmember, you're talking about staff participation in BBCAG?
Right.
Staff is not in the same role because they are not formally a decision maker or making a recommendation on the draft EIR. So I do not see any reason that staff couldn't participate and certainly attend the presentations. And I certainly agree with the fact that it's very important for the council, for the planning commission, for everyone to have all the information regarding the remediation and to have accurate information in moving forward. The issues are ones of timing and how that information is brought to the council in view of the formal role that you currently have with the draft EIR process.
Other question? Okay. John.
Thank you. My name is John Christopher Burr. I am proud to be a lifelong resident of Brisbane, and I'm an attorney at law. And what I've just heard is the biggest crock of nonsense that I've heard in a long time. You know, when I've talked to other government attorneys who work only for the government, and they mention some of the things that have happened in this town and what our city attorney has done, they laugh in my face and say, "What? You have a contract city attorney. You don't have a full-time city attorney." I'm not saying that this city attorney has outside conflicts. He may, because he's a contract city attorney. But this kind of advice is really, really questionable, really suspect. And I'll tell you why. It's because it asks the citizens of Brisbane to give up their civil rights. Don't comment. Don't participate. Don't go to public meetings. Don't get yourself educated. And by the way, this is totally against the legislature's intent, their fabric, the way they've constructed the planning and zoning law in the state, is for the city and all government agencies to cooperate with one another, to have communication with one another, to participate in other types of public hearings. What he's telling you to do is, because of some wild paranoia thing that as far as I know, is no real threat, but possibly, maybe some boogeyman's going to come out of the woodwork and sue the city because you used your civil rights, I think is really rather ridiculous and laughable. And really, I think that you may have made a grave mistake, because I've heard this several times now. Don't participate. Don't comment. Don't submit written comments if you happen to be on the planning commission or the city council or some one of the committees. And I think this is just really wrong. This is not the Brisbane way. The Brisbane way says stand up and speak your mind and fight. And if you're afraid, go live someplace else. You know, this is Brisbane. And this is not the Brisbane way to shut people up and cut them off. This is wrong. And I think it's disgusting. And I think it's wrong. I think it's wrong legally. I don't think any court would ever find in the favor of somebody who said, you sacrifice your civil rights and can't participate in public meetings. You can't comment. This is not Nazi Germany. This is not Tsarist Russia. This is not communist Russia. This is America, and this is Brisbane. We became a city because we didn't want the county and Crocker to redevelop this town and bulldoze every house in town. Now, you have a toxic waste dump out there that's been voted on the people. They've prohibited housing, and you're processing what amounts to an illegal application. Why are you doing this? You should just stop it. Just say no, because the citizens have voted on this. They voted not to have housing out there on the toxic waste dump. It's toxic. It'll always be toxic, because they're not going to dig it up. They're not going to remove any toxins to speak of. It's going to stay toxic forever. And just today, I was listening to a senator from new senator from New Jersey, and he talked about the number of Superfund sites. This is a Superfund site. that they have in New Jersey and how corporations have been able to externalize their costs and put it onto the public, and the health consequences and education consequences. And it's really sad. And so I think the citizens of Brisbane know what they did when they said no housing out on this toxic waste dump. And if housing is taken out of this proposal from Tundex, UPC, whatever the hell they call themselves, then it dies. And since redevelopment has been taken out, their infrastructure is gone too, because they wanted the citizens of Brisbane to suffer and pay for their infrastructure as well. Let's get subsidized. That's the way corporations are in America today. It's disgusting. This advice is disgusting. It's not the Brisbane way, and I think you should ignore it or fire this attorney or ask for his resignation. Get a new attorney. Thank you very much.
Thanks, John. Okay. Anybody else wish to speak in oral communications? Not seeing any takers. We're going to move along here on the agenda. So bring this to the consent count. Ray?
Could I just wanted to make one remark. We have, in the previous agenda, we were concerned about the viability of EBCAG by the departure of so many members because of the set of circumstances. And the only thing that I would request is, not at this moment, but if the city attorney and the city manager would at least reconsider some kind of partial participation that, stays away from the very sensitive draft EIR, eventually FEIR issue, and may make some other kinds of participation possible rather than total exclusion. At least consider that as a possibility to help BBCAG become, a more viable operating vehicle. It's a request.
It's reasonable. Council agree? Yeah. I think it's a reasonable request. So.
Well, I think that having sat and worked with the BBCAG, that there's a lot of good information and a lot of good discussion that comes out of their work. And I would like to be able to participate. And if nothing else, I would like to attend and hear what's being said, because I do think it would make us more informed. It doesn't necessarily mean that by hearing their discussions that any decisions are being made. But I think it is, reasonable to expect that that information comes back to the city, or at least to the council, and help shape what is, the information that's out there. So I really would like to participate, and even if that is in a limited way, or I would like to find some way to be able to do that, or at least tape the meetings or have it where it's public information, so that all of us have that opportunity to see that, so it's not just one member or two members of the council that have access to the information.
It's,
If I may,
yeah, Cliff, go ahead.
So we could televise the before I go there. So the time frame that you're looking at where council members should stay away from BBCAG meetings is just in the draft EIR portion of this process, or once the draft is, the comments have been commented on, and the final EIR is submitted, does then that allow council members the flexibility to then participate at these types of meetings? Is it just in this draft EIR portion?
It would be through the review and a decision on the final EIR.
Okay.
But let me be clear that the recommendation regarding participation doesn't apply to if there's informational presentations from Regional Water Quality Control Group or DTSC, in which they're presenting current information about the remediation, about best practices that would not be directly related to the draft EIR, then there's no prohibition on council members or planning commissioners both attending and participating. Certainly it's my interest to make it as possible for the council members and planning commissioners to participate in any BBCAG meeting that they possibly can. Again, the concern is only in protecting the integrity of the process with respect to the draft EIR and the Balins. So if there's a presentation, it's a general presentation, certainly it would be appropriate for council members and planning commissioners to attend as long as it's not directly related to and discussion of the draft EIR.
Okay, and then say if a BBCAG meeting was filmed, and then a council member had the opportunity to watch that, there wouldn't be any, prohibition from being able to do that. Correct? They can watch a meeting of the BBCAG that dealt with the draft EIR.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, they just can't make any comments about it. They just have to keep that information or their comments to themselves. So, there's other ways where council members can get information. They just can't participate in commenting if it deals with the EIR. But as the attorney has just said, council members can attend and listen and actually participate in non-EIR related matters at the BBCAG meeting. So.
Okay, just real quick, Mary, is the DTSC or Regional Water Quality Control Board meeting general meeting in regards to contamination?
Yeah, it's very general. Now, that doesn't mean that someone else who attends won't ask a question that was generated by their review of the draft EIR, but no, it doesn't have any specific thing. He's not. Yeah, he's going to give a very general presentation, and we're going to ask him questions that are based on what they're doing out there and what they're finding and what we think they ought to be doing.
Okay.
So, and I think that'd be great if you could come.
Great, thank you.
And Mary, I have one question. Are there any minutes or any other ways that council members or others would be able to review what happened at the meeting afterwards?
Well, right now Carolyn is the secretary. So whether if Carolyn can come, there'll be minutes. There'll be good minutes. Otherwise, we have to find a new secretary.
Okay, so that kind of gives us an idea, David. And then Clay, maybe picking up on Cliff's part. Because I know these are being held right now at 250 Visitation, which is the community center, and we don't have filming capability. Is there a chance we can kind of work out the logistics to have the BBCAG meeting here and to televise it? So, this is in regards to stuff that's related to the EIR. And you don't need to say yes or no right now, but work with staff on it is what the...
Yeah, my only reaction, Mr. Mayor, is that I think historically the BBCAG has wanted to meet at the community center and not at a City of Brisbane office because they're not a City of Brisbane committee, right? They're a committee of a different nature. If they wanted to meet here, I don't think there's any legal reason why we couldn't have them meet here.
Okay. And
is
Mary,
there a cost?
that might be something you want to put on your agenda, Mary, to bring up with the group, to see if that's, because I think that would be a viable option. So,
I was just going to ask, is there a cost associated, though, with taping of the minutes, of the meetings?
Well, if we just use a one camera, there isn't. There's always a cost to using the room.
That would be it. It wouldn't be a cost of televising because we wouldn't necessarily need an operator, but we'd have a staff member who would turn on the video recorder. They would use the one camera. It'd be kind of homogeneous, pretty much like planning commission meetings and the open space and ecology committee meetings.
Janitorial for the room.
Yeah.
Sounds reasonable.
I think we made a similar offer to the school district.
I don't, from my.
They've used that, they've used this facility for a couple of meetings.
Yeah, other groups have used it, and if other groups want to use it, including BBCAG, and there's available time space, we can make it available. We don't have a policy yet of charging anybody for meetings, so.
And then would those videos be posted on the city website or somewhere else?
Probably not.
Yeah.
So the CAG would.
They would go out over Channel 27, and I don't know. We also simultaneously broadcast on the internet. I don't know if we would or would not for a situation like that.
Good.
Yeah, I think there's probably a question of whether or not that'd be appropriate, but we can try to sit down and try to work through those issues.
Okay.
Yeah, I would like to run that by a few other people in the CAG. Maybe even specifically the DTSC representative. If it wasn't available, it might be possible to get DVDs of the tape, to get a tape of the meeting if it wasn't going to be broadcast, and then we could make a DVD or a tape available to people who wanted to view it.
Okay.
Well, one other, like our tap that we did last week, we did televise. It was in here. It's available on YouTube now. Could do something like that.
YouTube would be better.
Yeah, I think that putting it on the internet would be better than having DVDs, so then it's more accessible to the public.
Yes, anybody can access it, not just those who have it.
And also, the city attorney had mentioned that there's no restriction on staff attending these meetings, and I'm wondering if we've had any updates in the past. I can't recall any from staff reporting on any presentations that have gone on at the BBCAG, and if not, then I'd like to suggest that we do that in the future, so that the council does stay informed on any presentations. And I'm not sure if there would be any issue. Maybe the city attorney can comment on that about the timing of.
Let me comment on it,
Okay.
please. I really think that this creates a duality of roles for staff, and I've told you before, and I'll tell you again, I'm not comfortable with staff actually sitting on the BBCAG. Going to meetings, being asked for information, participating in that fashion is totally fine. But when you create this kind of duality of role for a staff person to be sitting on a board that's then making recommendations on certain things, I think it just creates a confusion. And then for the staff then to be on the board and then to come to the council and make a presentation when they're not really the staff to the committee, I think also creates confusion. So I'm just trying to create simplicity in roles here, because otherwise things can get really confused. And that's been my contention about this. And it's not that I don't mind sending staff to the meetings to listen, to be asked questions. That's fine. I mean, and that's really a comfortable role for staff. That's what we do. But to also sit on the board and sit on a board that also has city council members on it, it just creates a lot of confusion. And I know there's a few other places in the county where this happens, but it doesn't have kind of the consequences of what we're talking about. This is a very important issue to this community, and I think the more confusing we make it, the more likely we're going to have problems.
You have to understand that, the nature of how the CAG works has kind of evolved over time. It was never expected to be a body that would take a lot of votes and make decisions. It's not expected that there would be homogeneity of opinion among members of the CAG. I have no problem with not having John and Randy on the CAG. They're there as yeah, exactly. They're there to answer questions pretty much and to ask them, and they can do that as members of the audience from time to time. I'm really more concerned about, the active members of our community, many of whom happen to serve on the city council or the planning commission or some other city body. And I want those people to be able to have, to be able to participate in asking those questions and finding that information.
The legality of all this, I mean, I think they're just two different issues.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Everybody clear as mud? Okay. All right, let's move on to the consent calendar. I have one small quibble on item A.
I know what it is.
I have some comments on item A as well.
And I have a small question on item D.
Okay, so do we have a motion for C and D?
So move.
Second? Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Item A, Ray, I'll see if you got this.
I did.
Okay, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Just,
What, you're referring to the council members present under roll call?
Yeah.
I knew
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
If you'll note, it has, we have two mayors on this
Yeah,
particular minutes.
it'd be Mayor Conway.
That just was something that got repeated from the previous minutes, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just eliminate the second mayor, who's no longer mayor at this meeting. Under roll call. See that? Yeah.
Yeah. So that's it on that, so
Yeah.
you want
I
to make
need
a
to see
motion to?
I had two.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
On the
did you-
same one? Yeah.
Item A? Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. On page 3, under public hearing,
What page?
page 3,
3?
third paragraph, it says, Councilmember Lentz proposed adding the language about exceeding the 50% of floor area ratio, and I believe that was my recommendation.
Yeah. And that one also had,
So I think that should read Councilmember Liu. Go ahead.
it also had Mayor Miller open public, and had changed that one too.
Okay, and then on page 4,
Okay.
comment by D.D. Porter, just to correct spelling, it's D-E-E, D-E-E is D.D. Porter's name. And then the second paragraph from the bottom, council members discuss their various concerns and ask that staff update the survey of users of facility. Went back and reviewed the video of this, and what I asked was that staff survey the public to determine how frequently the skate park site is being used and by whom and for what purpose, and what the public's priorities are, and to determine what the site can be used for instance, incorporating public art or other uses. You can go back and review the video, but that's the gist of it. And then that motion actually was unanimous. Councilmember O'Connell was not opposed. It carried 5-0. So the last paragraph needs to be corrected.
That is correct.
So it went 5-0, right?
Mm-hmm. To approve of the skate park process going along.
So, Laurie, do you have that language that you just read that you can give it to Sherry?
Or did you get it down, or she?
Yeah, I'll just review it. Basically, so you want more information on what you said.
Yeah, it was a little inaccurate, but also more detail. Correct. And that's all I. Oh, yeah. And that was all I had.
Okay, so we can approve that then? So Laura, you want to make a motion with those
Motion to approve with changes
as amended?
Minutes as amended.
as minutes as amended.
Okay, we have a second?
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, item B. Sherry, so
D?
item B?
It was D.
D.
D. Oh, I'm sorry. So we approved C and D, so
Oh,
I guess we have to extract that. So B and C we approved. So item D.
Item D. On on the application for the Mothers of Brisbane's clothing swap, I was looking at the application and it looks incomplete, or we're missing a page, because we go from, for the application 1, 2, 3, and then it jumps to 5 and 6. And they are not filled out. I'm assuming there is no alcoholic beverages or admission fees, but it's not filled out there. And then it's not signed.
Is this a time-sensitive matter?
That's this Sunday.
It's very time-sensitive.
I have no problem approving it, but I would like to make sure that staff gets a signature for the responsible party and does, have that information available on whether it's, has a completed application.
Okay.
But I hope that it's a successful event.
Is that a
I
motion?
wouldn't want to hold it up for this, but I would like to see the application completed.
And a second.
There's also a discrepancy in the time. Staff report says 1 to 5, but the application says 12 to 5.
The 1 to 5, I think the 1 to 5 is when the event is, and then there is additional time that the staff has.
Is it setup time?
Setup time, yeah.
Okay, got it.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
If I could, if I could just make one comment. It didn't say they wanted this in the promotional support, but I was wondering if the city would be able to post it on the website and put it in the weekly email update that goes out. I think it would just be a good way to get more information out.
The login and
Yeah.
signboard, yeah.
And it is a great event. I've attended it in the past.
Okay. Motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that take care of the consent calendar. New business, item A, consider authorizing, the city manager to execute an extension with South San Francisco Scavenger Company franchise agreement through June 30th, 2014. Staff report, please.
Mayor and council, good evening. The city currently has a franchise with South San Francisco Scavenger Company that began in 1999 and has a current expiration date of March 1st, 2014. Since the last franchise was negotiated with South San Francisco Scavenger Company, there have been a number of significant changes in the area of waste management and recycling. The city very recently changed the zones for waste collection in Brisbane from one zone that was the entire city to 3 separate zones, so that there's now 3 separate possible franchise agreements rather than one for the entire city. There have also been a number of changes in recycling goals and state recycling law that will have to be incorporated into the new franchise agreement. The city has been working over the last several months to revise the agreement to adopt and incorporate the new laws and the new zones, and is in discussions with South San Francisco Scavenger Company. However, because of the number of revisions and the complexity, it's not going to be possible to complete the agreement by the current expiration date of the 1st of March. Therefore, we're requesting, or staff recommends, that council authorize the city manager to execute an extension to the franchise agreement with South San Francisco Scavenger Company through the end of this fiscal year, June 30th, 2014, with the anticipation that we will have the new franchise agreement ready to come to the council for approval on or before that date. That concludes staff report.
Okay, council questions? Ray?
I was going to add a couple of things.
Go ahead.
I'm on the subcommittee, Clark. First thing I noticed that, or we noticed, that a lot of things happened in 15 years. And it was amazing how much of the contract looked like it was something from the last century. So we really needed to do a lot of revision based on a lot of changes that have happened. And so almost every page had really a lot of changes. So one of the things we noticed was the thing has to be really rewritten, and it's quite a major job. So that's the first thing that we noticed. The second thing is that actually the Public Works Director actually took responsibility for kind of holding things up, but it's not really his fault either, and that's because of all the changes in the expectations of the Regional Water Quality Board for the permit, for the so-called NPDES permit, that is all the nasty stuff that's ending up in the bay, and they're getting stricter and stricter, and how we enforce all these new regulations and what the city takes on and what the scavengers take on, it becomes, pretty complicated set of issues. And it's changing almost every day because they keep changing their mind as to what they want and what they will approve and so forth. So that's another factor in the delay here. So we were trying to figure out how much more time we needed, and we talked to the scavengers, as you noted in the staff report, and they agreed that this period of time that we're proposing is probably the appropriate period of time in which we can get all this together.
Okay.
And I would just add, I have reached out to the Sierra Club to get some input from them on what types of programs and priorities they tend to see in contracts with other cities, so that we can, hopefully get something, that's environmental and has some good recycling opportunities. So when I get that information, I'll forward it on to Clay so the subcommittee can look at it.
Okay. Good. Other questions? Okay. Not a public hearing, but council's pleasure on this. And you want to, I would entertain a motion to.
Yeah, well, I would be prepared to move the extension of the contract with the South San Francisco Scavenger Company franchise agreement, so that the current agreement continues through June 30th, 2014.
I would second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, very good. Thank you. Thanks, Paul. Item B, which is review photo entries of a history book cover photo contest and select top choice and possible alternate. So, staff report. I guess you're going to show these overhead, right, Maria?
I can. Would you like me to set that up first, or?
Yeah, might as well. Kind of give the community and.
Hey, good evening again, Honorable Mayor and Council members. As you'll recall, in November, you decided to go ahead and have us do a photo contest for the history book so that we could solicit photos from the community in hopes of getting a good photo that we could use for the upcoming publishing of the 50th anniversary history book. So during the months of December and early January, we received some entries. We received 11 photos altogether. Staff provided you those photos early so you would have a chance to actually see them, take more time to review them so that you had more time to kind of look at each one rather than have just a few minutes here within the council meeting. So what I have prepared today for you is just to provide you with, again, the photos. As you'll see on your screens, these are some of the photos. There is one also that I can flip to, but if you like, I can flip through them one by one if you'd like to look at them individually on the screen to give everyone, the community, also a chance to look at them.
That would be good.
Sorry about that. Get back to. Okay, so I'll just slowly go through each one of the options. There are 11 photos total. So again, one of the requirements for the history book is to make sure that the photo that you select is appropriate. So one of the caveats to this contest is making sure that the one selected is able to be reproduced properly. With that, we recommend that if you do make a selection, to make two selections, a top selection as well as an alternative, so that we can send it over to our designers to see how they come out to make sure that they'll meet the publishing requirements.
If I could ask a question. So in addition to these 11 photos, I understand that originally there were 2 photos before this photo contest that were submitted, and one of them in particular had low resolution. That's what the staff report said, so it wasn't able to be selected, the people in it at the community festival. And then there was a second one with the fog rolling in over the mountain at nighttime, and I'm wondering whether those photos can be considered as well, or if the resolution is enough.
Well, in terms of the first one, as we mentioned, the issue with it was because of the blurriness. They can always produce it the way it comes across, even if it's blurry, if it's what our preference is. However, in the subcommittee, we were still kind of debating whether it was the right choice at the time. The second one, again, that is a possibility, but again, we at that time we decided to go with the photo contest. So it's really council's discretion in terms of how they would like to proceed.
Yeah, one of the things that we looked at is wanting to capture Brisbane being the city of stars, and thought that we'd be able to do that at Christmas time. And that was the whole purpose of having the contest, where the one photo was taken actually in the summertime, even though somebody had a star. One with the fog coming over the mountain, which we thought was like, wow, I've never seen the fog in the wintertime, and then realized, that actually was summertime when that picture was taken. So that was really the gist of the what took us to the portion of having the contest, is to capture that. And the subcommittee actually made a recommendation, there was one that we liked that was different than all of them, because it best captured, I think, what we were looking for as far as representing the city of stars. And that was actually the one that was photoshopped. And so
does that mean that one cannot be allowed, or is that within the rules? Was that one of these? Does the subcommittee have a recommendation?
Yeah, it's actually one of the 11 there that,
The one with all the stars?
The one with all the stars.
Okay.
And that was really our choice for recommendation, first choice. So we wanted to bring it to the whole council, as far as bat it around. But kind of looking at it, really captures Brisbane is the way you got it set up on there right now on the screen. Kind of having all the pictures in it. I'm not sure how that would work, but that kind of captures Brisbane. I mean,
Yeah,
I don't think that was
No.
done intentionally, but
Yeah.
Is there any opportunity to create like a back cover that has one picture on one on the front and one on the back? I mean, I really, I was hoping to get a picture. They're great pictures, but I was hoping, I guess, to see one that had the mountain and the stars. You know, sort of like the one. The one that stood out was the one that's really crisp and clear with the lagoon and the mountain. But I see that as very similar to the one that's in the last history book, right? It's almost identical. Like the photographer probably did that intentionally. And so then I thought, well, then there's one of that's this one right here that has this, do see the mountain, you see some stars, but the lighting isn't very good. So
it's a big dark spot.
Yeah, so I sort of.
But that one would also make it appropriate for the title to go in. You do need to have a certain amount of space available just so the title does stand out on its own. So even the dark space on that could be a possibility to work well.
Maria, is it possible to put the photo that has the fog onto the screen? Do you have that slide?
But I don't have it on this slide.
If you look closely, that one does have a star on one of the houses at the top.
You know, I mean, I understand, you know, the intent of wanting to have a picture that had a lot of stars because we are a city of the stars. But of all the photos that I've seen, none of them beat this one. To me, this one really stands out. I think I think it's a classy photo, and I think it really represents our city in a nice light. You know, like Maria was talking about, you need to have that proper, you know, space relation to everything, so that if you're going to put your, you know, the name of the book, and you know, it needs to be able to stand out, and this background allows that to happen. A lot of the other photos, you don't have that. What you'd have to do is basically crop down the photos and then have a black space, right? And that I don't know. What you then do is you're making your photos smaller. Or here the photo can be enlarged to cover the whole entire page. So I mean, I would still, you know, I think we definitely have to honor the you know, the photo contest. And that doesn't mean that we couldn't incorporate their photo into the book somewhere, but I think for the cover, I would go with the one with the fog.
I agree with Cliff. I agree with Cliff that I like the one that.
You like the
has
one with the
fog.
fog coming over the mountain, the summer shot?
I think our town is just about as much about summer as Christmas, even though we are called the City of Stars. I don't think it necessarily has to be a Christmas shot. But we're talking, you know, you said something about the photoshopped conglomerate or montage, and I'm not sure that this one with the fog isn't.
I don't think it really matters to me. You know, it's just whatever is what we think is the nicest. I don't think it depends on how it was put together.
You know, I would probably say that I like the one at the lagoon the best, but again, it is almost identical to what we had before, and so that's...
You like which one?
The one with the lagoon.
Oh.
And I think this one is lovely. But again, it is almost a duplicate of what was there before. And then it's harder to look at them for a portrait versus landscape and what kind of cropping would have to be done and what part of your photo you would lose.
Maria, who took, is it okay if I ask who took this photo? Staff, you did?
We were trying to keep it as a blind thing.
This one here.
That one was by Kevin Fryer.
This one, okay.
It was the one that they used for the 10th anniversary for Live at Mission Blue.
Okay. It had other applications? Okay.
Yeah, we used that because we wanted to try to find something just to kind of give another alternative when we were going through the issue with the first cover, and also capture the layout of the title page, which is what you see there as we're shooting.
Because this was submitted prior to the contest.
Okay. Ray, you want to take a shot at this?
I told Maria when we were talking before the meeting that the dilemma I'm having is that the image I had in my mind of the kind of picture that would really be appropriate doesn't exist here yet.
Right.
So I'm not really happy with any of them. And so that's my dilemma. They all have, positive and negative components so far as presenting the kind of image that I had a vision of anyway. So I got this problem that I'm not really excited about any of them. And yet at some point we have to make a decision. We have to put something on the cover. I thought in a way that even though it was a Photoshop, if we really want to push the City of Stars as as an important theme, then that certainly generates that theme. But it is a kind of Photoshop put together. Mm-hmm. It has the disadvantage of that quality. The fog shot is nice, but it's not consistent with the subtitle anyway. But it is nice, and it does fit. And so in that sense, it's a desirable one. The lagoon one is redundant. And then so many of the other pictures are of, particular individual stars here and there. So that's not City of Stars. It's some individual star. Mm-hmm. And some of them actually specific business. So that's not probably appropriate either. So I end up thinking, geez, I wish there was something else here.
Can we extend the contest?
I don't know. I don't know what to say.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think it necessarily needs to be about the stars. Yeah. Do you really feel that it needs to be about, the holiday stars being lit?
That was.
I know that
was the original concept.
I know it was.
Yeah.
And that was the idea behind, because we're looking at the pictures that were presented with and goes, well, it doesn't.
Yeah.
And I thought, the pictures we got, certainly were nice pictures, but it somehow just didn't, as Ray said, it didn't strike that chord. So
obviously, none of us said, that's the one.
Yeah, right.
Right. The one that stood out and captured, I think what the theme was actually the Photoshop one, and that was what we were recommending as a subcommittee. But it was like, we know it was Photoshopped, but at the same time it was creative, certainly, and captured, I think, what the theme of City of Stars. So doesn't seem to be resonating with the three of you.
When's
So
the
decisions,
Maria, that we would need to submit a photo?
We don't really have a deadline.
there's always a preference to try before the next book comes out.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we got 25 years.
I mean, you could extend it, I guess, if you wanted to, or go with something that we already have.
Well, it kind of sounds like, we don't, of the ones we got, Cliff and Lori, you seem to want to go with the summer shot, but, are not totally convinced either. And Terry, you like the lagoon one, but it's redundant, as you said, and we're making a total different recommendation. So, certainly we're not married to any ideas. So it's.
Well, I'd have to say that the reason obviously the lagoon shot is a classic shot, which is why it made the cover the last 25 years. So I wouldn't recommend that would be the one that we chose. And again, none of them, I'm not a photographer, and I wouldn't know how to get a picture of what I envisioned onto a piece of paper. But for somehow, none of these quite grabbed me for the cover. But
Okay, so you had the same reaction I did.
Yeah.
Well, I think the challenge we've presented with these photographers is that we want a picture at night that still shows the mountain and the stars, and that's really hard.
Tough call.
It's got to be at exactly the right time.
Right, you have such a short window
Very short
when the
window.
sun is setting. But I really think that whatever we choose should not just show the stars, but the mountain, because that's such an important part of our history. And when you look at this City of Stars, the one that is up there with the fog, it has a large section that's actually of the sky, and it almost appears as if there's stars. You're looking at the stars in the sky, and the stars on the houses. So it has sort of a dual meaning.
Yeah.
You can see the stars from Brisbane, and you can see the stars in Brisbane.
Yeah, I'd be very happy with this photo here as the cover.
I think we do have to think through the rules of the contest and what we kind of promised.
Mm-hmm.
And so that gives us a dilemma too, because this particular photo was not entered in the contest. And I think we said something to the effect that, that the winning photo would end up on the cover of the history book.
Yeah, was that? I don't know. If that
And there was a
Anyway, I'm
monetary.
wondering how committed we are to that and so forth.
Could we get the exact wordage? Because I didn't think it was that. I thought it was that you would win $500.
Maybe the person would be happy with that, but I think it did say in the publicity material anyway. That,
I think the intention was kind of clear about.
yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
I know about that.
That being said, we could also consider the back cover if that is the council's desire to kind of meet that requirement. It's a little bit bending. I don't know. I should look at legal counsel regarding that.
Can you show us the back cover from the last history book?
There actually wasn't anything.
Nothing.
Oh,
Well, why don't we do this? Why don't we kick it back to the subcommittee, and then it doesn't look like we'll make a decision here tonight.
Or if you guys aren't, if you don't really like it, then we should just extend the contest. Let other people, and make it more wide open. But then maybe should we ask for shots that are vertical rather than horizontal?
Well, let's like I said, take it maybe to the subcommittee, and we can come up with a recommendation.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah,
I don't know.
just in the interest of moving it along.
Yeah.
and one suggestion that if you do decide to reopen the contest, I would recommend asking the photographer of this picture to submit it, so then it's within the contest, so that we would be able to
Legitimate
choose
entrant.
it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Okay.
All right. Thanks, Maria.
I guess.
Those are tough decisions. Okay. It brings us to old business, which is city manager's report on upcoming activities.
Okay, I'll start off with the Brisbane soils process permit status. Staff has been working with the council subcommittee on development of a document that we're calling a memorandum of understanding, or MOU. It's got basically 4 parts to it. A time of day operation limit, which we're looking at to be probably around 10 o'clock in the evening. A soils quality section that will kind of follow basically the audit that we did a couple of years ago and the reporting requirements out of that. The dust control management standards that were agreed to by the various parties involved in this a few months ago. And then finally, the more vexing issue of just exactly what the heights are going to be for this interim period of time. This memorandum of understanding will get us from basically now until the time that the Planning Commission reviews an interim use permit. Under our general plan, interim use permits on the Baylands can be up to 5 years in length. And so that was what they'll be reviewing, but we felt that there was probably going to be a fair amount of time between now and the time that the Planning Commission would ultimately take action, and that action may very well come up to the City Council, that we wanted to have a document in place to kind of govern what we're doing at this point. I got information later this afternoon that the one piece of information that we're still working on trying to get for this is a topographical map. It's basically a flyover of the area so that we can kind of chronicle at a point in time, which is now, just exactly what the various heights are throughout the project area. And that is going to be taking place, I believe, sometime within the next week and a half, 2 weeks. And then from there, there will be a submittal by the applicant. And again, that's the applicant is doing that, it's not the city. The applicant will then submit that to us. So I'm anticipating that will probably be the March 17th meeting that we come back to you with the memorandum of understanding.
Okay. Any council questions on that?
I do, Clark. Is that okay?
Go ahead, Cliff.
So Clay, you talked about you talked about dust control, and you said that when we've had our various meetings, we've talked about some different options. Can you just highlight some of those measures?
Well, they deal everything with a dust water palliative that's required to be on site, equipment that can scrub the tires, requirements for how the roadways are kept in and out of the site. Basically, the goal is not to have any fugitive dust leave the site. And I think the important thing is that the Bay Area Air Quality Management Agency has been a part of this, as well as the owner of the property and the businesses, the 2 businesses that operate out there, and the city. And we have basically an agreed approach with this. There's a checklist that the Public Works Department has put together, and they go out and inspect on a periodic basis and basically go down the checklist. If there's violations of or things that are not in place, then corrective notices are sent to the property owner and the applicant. Ultimately, we also have the ability to institute citations and fines under our new ordinance with regards to that.
And then what about the dust control measures on the mounds themselves?
I believe that's being controlled, again, by water tanks, water trucks, and a requirement to do that. There's also, I think you've noticed on some of the perimeter areas, there's been some hydro seed put down. Unfortunately, it hasn't rained very much, so the hydro seed does not have the benefit of Mother Nature, but the water tanks are watering those to try to get the growth.
Okay, yeah, because I haven't seen any growth yet, so I was just curious to know if that has been...
Yeah, I mean, I think in a normal winter you would have seen a lot more,
yeah, I think just naturally.
Yeah.
Maybe after this weekend.
Yeah, hopefully, we at least got a little bit the other day. So
1/4 inch or so.
Okay, and then you talked about establishing heights out there, and so what are you kind of anticipating as far as what's going to be your base and what?
I think that's way beyond tonight's conversation.
Okay.
With all
I know you're
it's
still
a very complicated
out,
conversation. But just to answer it, we are getting the topographical map so we can have a a point in time understanding of where all the dirt is. And then from there, we can try to create some standards in terms of what the heights ought to be. And I think we're looking at mean sea level as the marker.
Yeah, okay,
And then we'll have
yeah.
not a level of feet above that
Okay, no, that's
in
good.
terms of an approach.
Okay.
All right. Terry, any questions?
So you said that this MOU that you're working on is until we get another permit through the planning department, another interim
commission.
use permit through the planning department.
Commission.
Planning commission. So the permit that they have now was issued originally, how long ago?
It's been some number of years ago. I think it was originally issued in '04, if my memory corrects me.
And so that's the permit that they're working on now.
Right.
And looking to renew with the planning commission.
Right. Yeah. Okay. And as Councilmember Miller pointed out earlier tonight with regards to the document that we're working with regards to the waste franchise being out of date, that document I think was also out of date, even though it had been only a shorter period of time. So I think we're really trying to start from scratch and bring the current issues forward and the current practices that we want to see out there forward in terms of that document.
I'll just say that I've had many residents comment to me on the second mountain that we're building out there. So I look forward to getting a good, tight agreement that will make everyone happy.
Yeah, and I think part of what my understanding of the interim use permit is that they're actually aiming for a shorter period of time, given their development ambitions. So it might be like a 3-year permit, which may be more appropriate for us to think about going forward, even if whatever you think about potential development project out there. We know conditions change quickly, and so having a shorter period for the permit, I think, might make sense for the city and the operator.
Because you think perhaps, just potentially trying to engineer it properly?
Yeah.
That's where you're...
Yeah, and just
man.
changing conditions and, they're certainly if they start actually develop part of the site, that's going to change a lot of things out there. So, I think, we want to have the flexibility to adapt to that and to think those issues through.
Sure.
Okay. Lori, any questions? Okay, Ray? Good. All right, thank you, Clay, on that. And so, status of commission committee applications and appointment process?
Mayor and Council, on Friday I emailed you the names of the applicants for all 4 of the committees and commissions, and I could state their names here if you like, or I'm actually looking for direction from you on whether you'd want to set up interviews or talk about an appointment process.
Council's pleasure on that? You want to, Ray?
Well, if I understood the information correctly, in no cases are there really competitive situations. There are actually not enough to fill all the available spots. In some cases, it fills the spots. In other cases, not quite. So,
well, I think it fills the spots on all the commissions and committees if you go to a 5-member.
well, if we switched, yeah.
Well, but it was always between 5 and 7,
Yeah,
not
we
it didn't
built
have
that
to be
in.
7.
Right.
Yeah.
Have the flexibility.
Right.
But there aren't any. You're right. There aren't any conflicts as far as
Right.
too many people.
In that case, I would say bring it back at the next meeting and we'll just formalize it.
Yes.
Can you just state what the names are of the people?
Sure. For the Planning Commission, Karen Cunningham and Jamil Manur reapplied. For the Parks and Recreation Commission, Karen Lentz reapplied, and a new applicant, Madison Davis, applied. Open Space and Ecology, Michelle Salmon and Yakim Hayuk, I hope I'm saying that correctly, reapplied. And then we had one new applicant, Michael Abney. And then for the Complete Street Safety Committee, we got an application from Linda Montenegro Detmer. And there is a space on that committee for her to serve if you like.
Okay. So we'll just formalize it at the March 3rd meeting.
Okay.
March 3rd, is it?
Mhm.
Okay. Clay, you want to give us an update on the TAP?
Okay, so two acronyms, which stands for Technical Advisory Panel, and they were came forward last Tuesday and Wednesday to Brisbane. It's a collection of professionals in the planning and engineering, housing area, and some other business development areas. They came to Brisbane for a 2-day workshop that was sponsored by the Urban Land Institute, ULI, out of San Francisco. And the purpose of it was to take a fresh look at Crocker Park, including the shopping center area, and to provide some ideas for us to, in terms of the future of these areas and what types of things we might want to look at. They held the end of the second day, had a briefing that was done in the council chambers here, and that is available to view on YouTube if anybody's interested in looking at it. They'll be coming forward probably in about anywhere from 6 weeks to 2 months, and they'll be providing a written report to us. And at that point in time, my anticipation would be that we would look at it and really kind of focus in on the areas that we want to try to move forward with. I think all of you participated in it, a number of members of the community participated in this, and there's a number of things that are kind of outside our control, and there's a few things that are kind of like definitely within our control, zoning being one of the kind of the key areas. So I think from the city's end, we would probably want to put together a discussion of those items that we have control over, and see if we want to indeed move forward with those, and what sort of resources we're going to need to make that happen.
Okay. Any questions on that?
No questions, but I just want to comment that I thought it was a great event.
Okay, go ahead.
It's nice for us as a body to to ask those questions and get the feedback, and then when we had that gathering of everyone at the end of the second day, there were a lot of smiles on people's faces, from the community, and it seemed like folks were engaged and excited about some of the possibilities that might be out there for the city, in regards to economic development, and I would say like economic revitalization of being able to bring certain amenities back to the town. So that was really nice to see.
Okay.
Yeah, I just want to say, also I agree, it was a great event. I think Clay just also maybe didn't mention, it also included the quarry. And I want to thank the public who did participate, the stakeholders. It was really valuable input that everyone gave, and I'm looking forward to the report.
Yeah, and staff did a really great job too.
Yeah, excellent
organizing that. So thank you.
Just on that note, just give a lot of credit to John Swicky and his operation, Angel and Ken. They did the lion's share of the work to put together that very voluminous report that the panelists used ahead of time. So,
yeah,
that's great.
Yeah, certainly educated them for sure. Okay, celebration of the reopening and move to the fire station. I think we're talking about March because we wanted to get the old trailers out and all that.
Right, and we don't yet have a firm date for getting the trailers out, and the idea was that it will give us a lot more space to work with regards to the, reopening celebration. The firefighters, as you know, are already back in there. So as soon as we've got a date for those trailers to get moved, then we'll come back and set a date for the.
And they're happy.
The re-celebration. I'm not going to stipulate to whether firefighters are happy.
Okay.
They're moved in. I'm sure they're happy.
Okay. All right, that'll take us to Mayor Council Matters. Item A, countywide assignments and subcommittee reports. Any subcommittee reports?
No.
I do. Or look like you're ready to go.
Go ahead, Cliff.
Go ahead.
Okay. So I attended my first Cal Mode meeting, and it was very interesting. Just to kind of get to learn about the different, to learn about the history of Caltrain and where they plan to go into the future with electrification. Sometime, I think at the end of the month, they're going to be coming out with an EIR that I'll have to study. So, yeah, I was really happy to learn about that. Yeah, it's just interesting, like how they're, using the money is going to be, I think, $1.5 billion to electrify Caltrain. Half the money is going to come from high-speed rail. Of course, they better. Yeah, I know. They're doing it in phases, and hopefully, they don't get stuck with their pants down, right, without being able to have the money to finish a particular phase. But I think they have a good plan in place. So it was interesting to attend that meeting, and I look forward to learning more and sharing that with you. We had an airport roundtable meeting last week, and it was a very interesting meeting. I mean, we're all feeling that kind of anxiety of this environmental assessment that's coming out from the FAA regarding the AWAPM and basically the future of air traffic in our in the Bay Area and actually across the country. And we still haven't gotten confirmation from Patty Daniels, who is the AWAPM. She's I don't know her exact title, but she's in charge of the AWAPM process. And so I was hoping to be able to share with you that we have a date set with a regional meeting with her and her design team to actually make comments or to provide suggestions to the plan itself. And so she still needs to get back to me in regards to whether her superiors will allow that process to happen, because this is going outside the norm of all the other AWAPMs. So we formed a work program subcommittee. I'm on that subcommittee to hopefully prepare the roundtable and San Mateo County as a whole to be able to prepare for the environmental assessment that will be coming. I know that we have talked about perhaps having something in Brisbane. Originally, I was thinking, well, maybe if the roundtable is taking the lead, perhaps we wouldn't need that. And now I'm starting to reevaluate. And so, I think Ray and I are going to have a meeting with Clay, trying to put that thing together. And I think having a subcommittee meeting to evaluate the different options is a wise thing to do. So, kind of having a parallel track, roundtable and the city is a smart way to go. And then, I was supposed to go to the CMEC meeting, but I've realized I have a little bit too much on my plate right now. And so I've decided to step down from that position, though I really like being on the CMAC. I mean, it's an advisory body to CCAG, and learning about the shuttle services, learning about being able to implement energy efficiency and alternative energy to buildings in our school districts and city buildings. I learned that that program through this body, and so I'm actually disappointed not being able to carve out enough time to do it. But unfortunately it's I think we meet on Wednesdays at 3:00, and it's in San Mateo. It's in the middle of the day. It just doesn't work with the family logistics, and so but perhaps if a council member would want to apply for that position, it would be really great. I think they would learn a lot and be able to provide a lot of important information to the council.
Okay. Terry?
I don't think I have any reports from the last 2 weeks.
Okay. Great.
Yeah.
I mean, what we met on.
Yeah, I know, we've been meeting on a lot of stuff, but
Is all
I
addressed
thought I'd
tonight.
just report on a couple of things.
Oh, that's right. Well,
Just selected. You want to say something else?
No. I forgot. You and I met on a subcommittee meeting too. So.
Right. But I was just going to reference a couple of things that have happened between the last meeting and tonight. We had several meetings actually of the facilities subcommittee, but the part I wanted to mention was the progress on the dredging at the marina, and we got some figures as to what the situation is and what are different options, and so we're going to get some recommendations from staff as to what makes the most sense to do. And so that's going to be forthcoming, but I wanted people to know that there is progress in that arena. And also there's a harbor master change that maybe the city manager would want to just bring us up to date on that, if you like.
Sure. We got an interim harbor master, and unfortunately, I don't have his name on my tongue. But we'll try to get some information out on that. We will be recruiting for a full-time permanent position in the next few months. We're probably going to use a outside recruiter to do that because it's a very kind of unique sort of position. And it's also one that we probably were going to want to try to beat the bushes on nationally, actually. So we'll be moving forward with that and hope to get that position filled on a permanent basis in the next several months. In the meantime, the Public Works Director is pretty much hands-on in terms of the capital side of this, which is obviously where a lot of our effort and discussion in the past year has gone.
I have a couple other things, but Cliff, do you want to talk about the balance process, or do you want me to?
You can do it.
Okay. So the very large, professionally impressive committee that's working on this set of issues as to the review process we'll use for the EIR and then the planning process that grows out of that. We're trying to work on putting together the sequencing, and the timing, and who does what when, and we're making some progress on that, and we have some draft statements for public release eventually, and we're hoping, I think, if I recall, to have some initial discussion of this whole set of issues at the council meeting on Saturday, the 22nd. We still on target for that?
We are, and maybe this is a great opportunity for Councilwoman Liu, who has a conflict that day, and we're thinking about maybe pushing it out a week.
Oh, okay.
That just came up in our conversation today.
Okay.
Sure.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so I was,
Just happened today.
that was one of the things I added as item C.
Okay, all right. All right, so anyway, the main thrust of the meeting, which was a very helpful meeting, very good exchanges, and we have a lot of still issues to resolve, but I think we're getting it together. And one of the things what we're trying to do is figure out, how we can collectively, as a council and also in collaboration with the Planning Commission, get our hands on a huge amount of information that we have to digest and make sense of, and then make recommendations on eventually. That's a really difficult process, and yet we want to be able to do it effectively and expeditiously, and that's the question that we're trying to answer in these committee meetings. And hopefully we'll have some specifics come forward on whatever date we have our work plan meeting that will get resolved, I guess, later on this evening. So that's a report from that meeting, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I wanted to also report that on January 24th, there were a couple of meetings. That the first one I attended on my own, and that was January 24th. Yeah. And that was first was the coffee with Assemblyman Mellon, and I attended that. and was very well received by him and had some conversation. And he also would like to have a coffee in Brisbane, and so that's forthcoming. And so we look forward to that. And one of the things, you pick up little bits of information at different places, and one of the bits of information I picked up at that coffee was the number of lawsuits filed by cities, that is, cities who were formerly redevelopment agencies, against the Department of Finance over their, quote, inept handling of the relationships between the cities and the Department of Finance has now reached 160.
Mishandling?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. So, I mean, they're going to spend more money on the lawsuits than they ever were going to gain from this whole process. So, I mean, it's just so irrational. But anyway, I talked with that issue from our point of view, that, some of the problems that Stuart's been talking about. And so I mentioned them to Assemblymember Mullen. He said, you're not the first one to tell me about this. So anyway, that was a very useful session. And then in the evening, same day, Cliff was nice enough to give me a ride, so we went together to the Council of Cities, and of course the first was the City Selection Committee, and the only contested election was for the ABAC representative. And on the first vote, Das Gupta, the council member from South San Francisco, was elected. And then the program was actually the chair of the Board of Supervisors, Dave Pine, giving the State of the County address, which I thought was pretty good. And I liked his style and his approach, and he said a couple of things which I thought were interesting. One was he was able to juxtapose the fact that San Mateo County is one of the wealthiest places in the world, actually. But on the other hand, we have a certain percentage of the population that hasn't been so lucky. And, they need a lot of help in public services, and he dedicated his year as chair of the Board of Supervisors to see what he could do about that. And I like that realization that there's wealth, but it ought to be shared, and people who deserve help should get it. And he talked a lot about different programs. He also talked about the fiscal condition of the county is pretty good as long as the state doesn't mess things up, which of course is always likely, but as long as they don't, the county's in pretty good shape. And he talked a lot about the Measure A sales tax money and how it's going to be allocated, and so forth. And then he also talked about his favorite topic, I think, because he's talking all over the county about it, and that is sea level rise. And what was interesting is that he again emphasized that the county that will be the most affected by sea level rise in the whole state of California is San Mateo. So, we got a big challenge. And we also talking about the TAP conversation, and of course it was part of the materials that the staff provided. Crocker Park also has a sea level rise problem because some of it is subject to flooding and obviously is pretty low. And so any kind of long range planning for Crocker has got to take that into account. And so that all goes together, and at least Supervisor Pine is really hoping that we can do something on a county-wide basis to address this ultimate issue. Lori?
Okay, so Terry and I did meet on one subcommittee, the Planning Issues Subcommittee, a couple weeks ago, and we have another meeting this Thursday. We met on January 16th. We talked about updating the fire code based on Ray's recommendations to address petroleum, liquid petroleum tanks and liquid flammables, and changing the way that where we allow for that. And so we made some recommendations, and there's going to be a draft of that presented to us on Thursday. And we also looked at an ordinance number 576, which deals with the garage, carport setbacks, off-street parking, and we had a good discussion about that. And I'm not sure if that might be coming back to us again. It sounded, we didn't really make any conclusions, but we discussed the issues, and we did have a member of the public there as well. As for the Peninsula Television, I had a second shooting So you all saw that there was the first shooting for the San Mateo County today, where they interviewed me as one of the new council members. Well, last Friday this was a different show called Special Edition with Mark Simon, and he invited all of the newly elected council people from throughout San Mateo County to come for a panel discussion. There were 7 of us there, including council members from South San Francisco, Belmont, San Carlos, and Foster City. And that one will be airing on Channel 26 starting today. It's going to be available or airing at 8 a.m. on Fridays and 9 p.m. on Sundays. And it's also currently available on their website, pentv.tv. So hopefully the city can link to that again, as we did with the last interview. And we had a good discussion of issues. And then 2 weeks ago, we had our new council member and Mayor's Academy that Clark and Clay and I went up to Sacramento for, and that was very interesting. We learned about the Brown Act and what other cities are dealing with other issues. Got to meet all the other council members from throughout the county, and the league put together a nice special tour of the Capitol. Where Senator Jerry Hill and Assemblymember Mullen actually took us to the floor of the Assembly and the Senate, and we got a little behind-the-scenes tour, so that was really fun. We had a really great presentation on social media, where the city of Fremont showed us what they're doing with their online, with their website and all their Facebook pages, and that was really fascinating. So that's it.
I missed most of it.
And we all got sick, but
Yeah.
we're all feeling better now.
Yeah, I got very sick up there. Made it to one day, and glad to make it back. Okay, item B, which is written communications, and the first one is letter from Commission on the Status of Women in San Mateo County. Ray?
Yeah, we're just reporting that the commission decided not to honor the nominees that we put forward, and that was Seppi Richardson and Clara Johnson. They said, thanks for putting in good candidates, but we picked some others, not these, so neither one of our candidates made it. The one thing that I did notice on the next go-around is that they also give an award for a young woman of excellence. And I don't think we've ever submitted anybody for that. And so maybe on the next go-around, we should think not only for the Women's Hall of Fame, but also this other category that they recognize.
Good idea.
Sounds good. Clark, before you move on to the next one, did you say that you had an update from the facilities subcommittee, or
From the what?
facilities? You guys met, or
Yeah.
did you guys?
Ray, I think already did the update.
Did you give it a? Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't.
Yeah, it was
was
regards
the
to the marina.
That was the only thing that you guys talked about.
Well, that was the only thing that I thought was close enough to being a reality that we should share. The other things are not very far along yet.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm just kind of curious. What are those things that still need more time that you guys are still kind of putting together, or is it?
Well, one of them is the whole issue of what are we going to do about the library, but that's really, we're looking at different sites, and that's not very far along, and that involves all kinds of properties.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing really much new on the skate park yet. That's also still in process. We're looking at sidewalk issues, but also there were just some thoughts.
Sure.
What else?
I mean, there's
We had a lot of
yeah,
stuff
I know. I
on
mean,
there.
they're really important issues.
Yeah,
you know,
right. But they're all sort of really early stages. So
It's really kind of it.
yeah.
Yeah.
The only other issue that we're working on is the potential water and sewer bonds.
That's right. Right.
Yeah. That's a different subcommittee.
That's water and sewer.
Yeah, you're right, it is actually a different subcommittee. But we usually.
Happens to be the same membership.
We usually piggyback you guys, so.
Yeah.
You know, the reason I just bring it up is that, you know, when we do have our council goal setting workshop thing, I mean, those would be things that, you know, I'd like to be able to get an update from you guys, and hopefully staff can deliver some of those things. I mean, yeah, I know they're very complicated. There's a lot involved, but I mean, they are big things that you know, that we have talked about, and it'd be nice to, you know, be able to keep those.
Well, it's kind of like the Baylands Sustainability Subcommittee. It's in progress. Right.
No, you know, I understand that.
Yeah.
You know, not to put the pressure on you guys, but you know, I mean, we have a lot of folks in the community that you know, put a lot of energy into things like the skate park, and you know, they'd like to see things move in a timely manner. They don't want the process to
No,
drag on for a long
that
time.
process has started, and staff is working on that. So it's not
Okay.
going to be a.
All these things are in process, but
Yeah.
not a whole lot to report, so that's why I decided.
Just to give you a little ease of mind on that one, we do have the completed RFP, but we want to sit down with the subcommittee first and then go to the joint subcommittees. So we're getting close to being able to issue that and get it out on the street.
Oh, that's nice to know. I mean, you know, that's good. So thank you for that.
And has any discussion among the subcommittee or staff been had about my suggestion to do a survey regarding users at the skate park?
We have had that discussion, and you I think brought that up when we had the meeting. I'd have to check with Stuart in terms of where we're at with that, but I know we have discussed that, and we probably need to bring that back to the subcommittee.
Yeah, the subcommittee really, we've been kind of waiting for the staff to put things together, and the last meeting that we had that really specifically dealt with the skate park was the one with the Parks and Rec subcommittee. So, you know, that's been some time ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So all we know is that, you know, things are in process, and we're waiting for
Next
to
step
reach
in the process.
a certain point, and then we'll be meeting and talking about it, and then we'll have something substantive to say.
Sounds good.
Okay. I think all of us have kind of been getting called and letters in regards to Proposition 13 on commercial property, on looking at doing a resolution. And I think it's probably on one end long overdue. I think the intent of Proposition 13 was to save grandma and grandpa from getting taxed out of their property, but there is a sunset date on that, and that is it can be passed to the next generation only on residential property, and then after that, it no longer has that benefit. But corporate commercial property, corporations, of course, never die. And sometimes they're sold and it's reconstituted, and there's some loopholes in the law that allow companies to be able to take that benefit of Proposition 13 tax reduction, which is basically evaluating some properties on 1976 levels. And so question is the council wants to do a resolution. There seems to be a movement to kind of push our legislators to open this up, which, you know, maybe Governor Brown really should have attacked this when he took office versus redevelopment, but being who he is, he didn't. And so, or nobody else wants to take it on up there either, because, of course, a lot of corporations back and finance their campaigns, which is really, I got a term for it, but it's not appropriate to say, so I'm not going to. So I guess the discussion is council wish to do a resolution to send to Sacramento to support maybe this. And I know we've kind of had some discussions about maybe we should involve our Chamber of Commerce in this to talk with our property owners and see, you know, what the effect would be on it. And mainly this would probably really more so affect Crocker Park than it would Sierra Point, because Sierra Point happened after the fact. And I think 1983 when buildings started cropping up out there. Crocker Park, of course, as we all know, State Teachers Association owns many of the buildings, and they're a tax-exempt entity. So they don't pay very much in property taxes on the properties here. So anybody care to comment on this? Ray?
If nobody else wants to.
Go ahead.
I'll follow up.
Yeah.
If there's anything to add.
Yeah, no, I think we ought to consider a resolution on this matter. I think it's important, the language of the resolution. I think there's no doubt that, I don't know whether this was an unintended consequence or somebody was really very clever from the beginning. I don't really know which is true. But there's no doubt that the consequence of the way Prop 13 has evolved over the years is that the tax burden has shifted, the property tax burden has shifted from, business to residential. So it's, small homeowners who are really paying the bulk of the property taxes. And of course, it's particularly the case with businesses that are structured as corporations, as you point out. I know that Senator Kopp tried very hard to get a change in the law, and I guess there's even some, according to Brown, former Mayor Brown, former Assembly Member, head of the Assembly, Willie Brown, that there's really just, if there was an interpretation of the law that could be changed, a lot of this could be fixed. I don't know whether he's right about that or not. But it does seem to me that the burden of taxation has become more and more unfair, and it needs to be, the balance needs to be corrected. And I think it's time to address the issue. And I'm just concerned that the way we put the resolution, because we don't want to craft it in such a way that it actually hurts the small businesses, because I think the ones who are really gaining from this are the big corporations who essentially, the way stocks are bought and sold and so forth, it essentially is still the same corporate entity. So when property changes hands, private homeowners change hands, except within the family situation.
For one
it gets
generation.
reappraised.
One generation.
But every time a home turns over, it gets reappraised and goes up to the next highest level. But corporations, they should go on forever, and even though there's also change of stock ownership and all sorts of kinds of things that can happen in the whole equity world, they still maintain their continuity with the protection of Prop 13. And of course, eventually that means they pay a heck of a lot less in taxes. And ultimately, that's unfair. And so I think that needs to be addressed.
Terry?
I agree that Prop 13, while it had good intentions, had a very poor realization of how it affected business taxes, and it affects our schools and our infrastructure and how we all have to look at things. So I think it needs to be revisited, and would welcome those changes happening in Sacramento. So I would support a well-crafted resolution that gave our support to that idea.
I agree with both you guys, or all you guys. Let's see. Last week, I'm sure you've been probably, like Clark had mentioned, receiving the emails. So, I forgot the guy's last name. I know his first name is Emil.
Emil.
What is it, Clark?
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so we talked, and I checked out the website. They have, a council, like section of their website to if you wanted to put together a resolution. So they have like this kind of kit, council kit. Cities such as Berkeley, Richmond, Albany, Santa Monica have put forth resolutions. So I told him that I reach out to Clark, and Clark and I talked about it, and I'm glad that Clark, put it at the forefront for tonight's meeting. I thought maybe it might be helpful to have Emil give us a presentation at our next council meeting, so he can do a presentation, and we can ask questions and kind of get more up to speed on what other cities are doing in regards to these resolutions. And then, of course, I mean, if we felt inclined to move ahead, I would also recommend putting Emil in touch with, I think Marianne, I forget Marianne's last name, from Pacifica.
Diehard.
Yeah. So, to perhaps, because I know she's looking for guest speakers for the Council of Cities dinners. They have all these dinners set up, but no guest speakers. And I think, if this guy does a good job, and we really like the message that they're promoting, I think it would be good to then spread that throughout the county.
Okay.
I agree with that approach. I received the voicemail and the email. I haven't had a chance yet to look at the website, but I agree it's something that we should look into. And if we feel appropriate, then I would like to hear a presentation and be able to ask questions, and then perhaps have a resolution drafted. So I would favor that.
Yeah, so perhaps staff, we can kind of set up for a presentation and then maybe agendize this to I guess we'd have to agendize it to request for a resolution to be crafted, or maybe get
There's a sample resolution in the packet.
Yeah, I mean, we could bring forward the sample resolution at that meeting if you want, or if you want, you just listen to the presentation and then direct us to bring it back at a future meeting.
Yeah.
Whichever way you want to do it.
Probably listen to the presentation and bring it back, because I know there's a lot of people that kind of been working on this too. I think the guy I think you taught with at San Francisco State, Lenny Goldberg, is that, yeah? Mm-hmm. Up in Sacramento. I had contacted him a number of years ago. I'd been talking with former Senator Quentin Kopp about this and some of the stuff that he had tried to pass through Sacramento back in the 90s. And so certainly there's a movement, and I think maybe the time is ripe, because the schools are doing resolutions, and this really affects the schools. So it affects the state's bottom line too, and how the schools get their income. So it is an important issue. But as with everything, the PG&Es and the Chevrons of the world would be crying foul, because they're probably the ones that be most affected by something like this if it was to change. So
Heaven forbid if they paid their fair share, right?
Yeah. Okay. Very good. So moving right along, item C, Lori, council meetings.
Yes, so we have up on our calendar, February 22nd, we have our goal setting session. And I just learned while I was previously available, my husband unfortunately has to work on that day. So we have a sort of a babysitting issue. I can get one if necessary, but if possible, it would be great if we might be able to change that till the following Saturday, which would be March 1st.
Bring them to the meeting. It should be entertaining.
Yeah, not a good idea. And you don't want a 2- and a 4-year-old running around.
Oh, we got Sherry.
Oh, she just, the look on her face.
I wouldn't have said that.
So what do you suggest, March 1st?
So I'm suggesting the following Saturday, which is March 1st, from 9 to 12.
And we have a council meeting on, would that be an issue?
No, actually, it would be very helpful to me, because we have to prepare for the meeting, and we have, I'm going to be gone most of this week, so I would love to have another week.
Would that mean that we would also change the
The library.
the library park reopening
Yeah,
to that date also?
We haven't advertised for that yet, so.
So that's sort of sketchy anyway.
Yeah, I've told some people, but I'm sure
We would have to
easily
get the
change
word out
it.
about it.
Yeah.
So we would schedule that on the same day then?
Mm-hmm.
The ribbon cutting?
No, we would change that.
March
I guess the only question is, it makes sense to go ahead and meet on March 3rd? Because that's our first council meeting, right?
Right.
March. So that's pretty close together.
Well, this is a Saturday.
Yeah, I know, but then the following Monday is a council meeting.
Right.
Right, so
Unless
that's
you-
what I'm saying is pretty close together.
Unless you wanted to push this out to March 8th. And then I understand what you're just trying to get away from that Saturday, Monday
Right.
dynamic.
Yeah.
If you want to put the goal-setting session on March 8th,
You know, I don't
That's
have,
fine.
I don't have a calendar in front of me, so I can't really tell you right now.
okay.
How about
Sorry,
tentatively,
bring my.
we'll say March 8th? Does that address your?
Or does she have a babysitting problem that
I
day
just
too?
need to get to.
Yeah, I mean,
Date.
I mean, I wonder
either way,
if I just
I'm not,
offered my kids to babysit for you, Lori. I mean, how about that? Is that?
yeah, I'm not too concerned about which Saturday for myself, but
That would be fine.
You want to do
but-
it?
I am concerned about, having two,
Okay.
really
Yeah, no,
big,
I hear
it
you.
sounds like the March 3rd is really stacking up as a really big meeting, and then.
Well,
having
you do
these
have
two-
the 8 Thomas appeal, so you know
Yeah,
that's going
right.
to take some time.
How about this? If I could help out with babysitting options on the 22nd, because I know that my daughter is interested in doing that.
You know,
Or is the 22nd not a good date?
yeah, I thought it would be, but it's just, I think the
He wants it changed.
Yeah,
It's
the-
now not
yeah,
about
it's-
babysitting.
Okay, we can move beyond
Lori and I are-
babysitting.
for different
Put
reasons.
it on, Lori. You guys are in cahoots on
We are.
I have no idea.
All right.
So
Well,
March
that would give
8th.
the facility subcommittee an opportunity to get more information, right?
March
Exactly,
8th.
exactly. Meets your needs too.
Okay.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay, March 8th.
Let's
Okay.
Tentatively March 8th, and Cliff, that doesn't fit in.
All right.
Oh, wait a minute, we can't do March 8th, that's 9 days before St. Patrick's Day, which we're having. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, we got a council meeting on St. Patrick's Day, that should be a holiday for all those Irish people. Yeah.
Did we do Niner games on Monday night? But no, it was.
Okay, so that's it. Oral communications number 2. All right, in that case, we're going to adjourn in memory of Dennis Wilkin and Fran Pedersen to a successor agency meeting. And like to take a break first?
Yes.
Okay.